Hey there, everybody! Just a quick note before this video begins. You may have noticed that there really wasn't a lot of card game content on the channel last week, and that I haven't really been doing the Pokemon game for quite a while now. To be perfectly honest, kind of really stopped enjoying doing the Pokemon game when I had to keep splitting it up into so many long delays, and really wasn't getting very many views anyways, so I've decided I'm going to not continue with that. But I do have a new game that I'm considering either... Sorry for the random cut. As I was trying to say, I do have a new game that I'm considering trying to either stream or record for you guys that I have on Steam thanks to Gaming Grandma. We're going to insert a picture of it right here. It is the Return to Moria game, which actually looks kind of cool. And it's definitely something that I would play a lot more of because A, I've never beat it before, and B, it feels like something that I would do in sessions rather than doing... The Pokemon game I like to play like a lot more at a time all at once, to be perfectly honest. I have a tendency to like play 2 or 3 gyms in one go, but I just can't record that much. And I didn't think that it would go over super well as a live stream. Maybe it will catch on later and we'll try and go back to it, but for now, I figured that the Moria thing will be cool. And the reason why the card game content has been delayed for you guys, and I apologize for that, is I'm working on emptying out my storage unit, which is pretty full of the stuff from when my partner and I were together, as well as a whole bunch of stuff from like when I was in school and things, and when I was a teacher. So I have like a whole bunch of paperwork I have to go through and toss like a lot of it. And there's some old clothes and other stuff in there. So I basically have 2 weeks to clean that out and get it moved over to either a new unit, or if I get enough of it tossed and sold, maybe just move the rest of it back into my bedroom. But either way, that is where we are at. So that is why there have been delays in the videos, and I apologize for that. But I will get out a new episode of 1 to 100 this week for sure. I've been sorting through the instance and sorcery cards over the weekend, and I have most of them together. And as for the Hall of Legends, that might actually get suspended for an extra week. I might not bring that back until next week sometime. But we'll see. In the meantime, in between time, I hope that you guys will at least enjoy this episode of Super Deck Sunday, though. Sunday. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode this week. So for those who are Magic fans, you guys get to take this one off, I guess. But for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans out there, I think this deck is kind of cool. So without further ado, let's get to the show. Good morning, humans who like Daddy's card games. It is I, Kaiba the Pug. I'm here with some exciting news. It's Smiley Cookie Day. Daddy, show them the Smiley Cookie. See? Daddy, he went to the Timmy's today to support the charity. Because my mummy, Daddy's former partner, she loved this charity so much, and Daddy and I, we promised that we would always do our best to try and support this charity. So we want to encourage you. It's the last day. If you can, get out there and buy a Smiley Cookie and help out the local charities near you. Okie day? Okie day. And now, it's time to get on to the actual card game stuff. So, today is Super Deck Sunday! Sunday! And I did the Super Deck Sunday headshake. I did awesome. Yes, I did. And Daddy, he's got a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck for you guys today. So you're going to watch that. And I'm going to have some more bacon, because Daddy said that I could have what's left of the bacon if I do a good introduction. And then we're going to go home, and Daddy's got lots of chores and stuff to do before we can get some sleep today. So, and he's got to edit all the videos, so it's going to be a long afternoon. So, yeah. Daddy, I think I did good. Time for you to get on with it, okay? Okay. Thank you, Kaiba. I will get on with it then. As you say. You want your bacon now? Yes, please. I would like my bacon now. Okay. Put that there for you. That's it. That's all you got left, okay? Ugh. Bacon grease. Pretty sure I got nothing here somewhere. Yay! Kaiba munching on his bacon. Wouldn't want you guys to miss that. Of course not, Daddy. I'm the star. Everybody knows that. Even if it's a card game video, I'm still the star. Especially for the Yu-Gi-Oh ones, because I'm Kaiba. And everybody knows Kaiba's the star in Yu-Gi-Oh. Not spiky-haired kid. It's me. I'm the star. Yes. Very good, boy. Very good. Thank you, Daddy. Alright, so as Kaiba said, I have a Yu-Gi-Oh deck for you guys today. This one's kind of an interesting one. I like to call this the Gates of Hell, which I'm going to have to put like some sort of disclaimer in the title, or maybe I'll do like HE double hockey sticks or something. But that's what this deck is. It's the Gates of Hell deck. And it's a really fun one in my opinion to play. I've got a variety of different things packed into this deck. But the bulk of it is 2 main archetypes, which we will get to in the end of the video. So I want to go through the random shit first and get it out of the way. So I've got a Kikinagashi Fucho. I apologize for butchering the crap out of that. What I like about this is it takes 2 level 1 monsters, which there are some level 1 monsters in this deck for sure. It's unaffected by other card effects. Once per turn, I can detach 2 materials from this, and for the rest of the turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle, and I take no battle damage from attacks involving it. Even though it's a 0/0, it basically ends up being like a really nice blocker, if need be. I've also got a number 96 in this deck. I love this guy. I do not have the C96 in this deck. I have that in a different one, because I only had 1 copy. But this one in particular, I'm actually a really big fan of anyways. 3 level 2s, once per battle, you can, when an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster, you can detach a material from this one, have the attack of the opponent's monster, and give the same amount of attack to this creature. So it just ends up being a really big creature. What I love about that is, though, it's not an until end of turn thing. So I think the attack gain is permanent. So if you can find a way to keep attaching stuff to this somehow, you can actually get this thing pretty big. Next up, the only other monster in this deck, besides a few randoms that actually have some meaning into the deck for a reason, is this guy, Exiled Force. And he's basically there to do one very particular thing with the Gates set. So when we get to that part, you'll see what I mean, but basically he's there mainly for that. I've got a fusion deployment to help with the actual demons part of the deck, because we want to get the cards we need to do the fusion summon. Not that you actually have to fusion summon, which is nice. You actually just need the materials. You don't have to actually get the polymerization card to pull off the fusion that's involved in this deck. 1 for 1, another fantastic card to just get a particular level 1 monster from my hand or deck onto the battlefield. Foolish Burial of Goods, send a spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard. Again, there's a certain section of spells and traps that I would like to see go to the graveyard, and this will help with that. Silent Graveyard, discard a card, effects that activate in the graveyard this turn are negated. Basically, that's just there to like stop my opponents from doing stuff. Card Destruction, again, getting stuff into the graveyard. Depth Amulet. I like this one because it you can discard a card to negate an attack, and then after the 3rd end phase of activating this, you have to destroy it. So it's basically just a 3-turn, like almost like a Swords of Revealing Light, except it costs you a card every time you want to negate an attack. Dark Smog. Once per turn, you can target one monster in an opponent's graveyard, and then discard a fiend. If you do, you banish that target. Again, mostly I'm wanting to get some of the cards into my graveyard with this, more than anything else. Metaverse is very vital in this deck because there are a lot of field spells, and all of them are pretty important, depending on what way I want to play the deck, whether I'm playing it the actual gate set, or whether I'm focusing more on the demons themselves. Either way, getting a field spell is crucial, and this is important to include for that reason. I've included my copy of Evenly Matched into this as well. This deck does have a tendency to end up with very few things on the board at the end of my turn, so this is a fantastic way to make sure that if my opponent has a bunch of stuff, I can wipe out their stuff and pave a path to victory for myself. And finally, Heavy Storm Duster. Again, this is more just to deal with my opponent's spells and traps. Preferably do this on my opponent's turn, but if I need to, I can do it on my turn and just lose my battle phase. So, not bad overall. Not bad. Whoop, shaking the camera. Yes, Kaiba, I know. It warmed up pretty quick, didn't it? But don't worry, we won't be here very long. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks are always smaller. Next up. Alright, I forgot I added this in here. I'm actually going to save that till later. We're going to do this, and then that. Alright. So, next up, another random include that I just like this card, and I haven't been able to fit into any other decks, so I found it fit pretty well in here, though. The effects of your opponent's monsters that destroy this thing are destroys by battle are negated. During your standby phase, after this thing destroys a monster by battle, you can send this to the graveyard and special summon the level 6 from your deck or hand. If it was special summoned by the effect of level 4, then the effects of opponent's monsters that this thing destroys by battle are negated during your standby phase. After it negates an opponent's monster's effect by sending this card to the graveyard, you can special summon the level 8. And then the level 8, if it was special summoned by the effect of the level 6, just prevents all your opponent's monsters that this thing gets destroyed by battle from having their effects, and it also removes them from play, which is kind of cool. So basically it's just to deal with effect monsters on the battlefield in particular. I can essentially cope with my opponent's nonsense with that guy. And since I'm running a whole bunch of demons, it kind of worked. Next up, as I said, I do have a whole bunch of spells and traps. I accidentally revealed what the demon set is, so spoilers there by accident. I have 3 Earthbound Immortals I had extra copies of, so I tossed them into here mainly because I felt like they kind of represent sort of like demonish like things. I also thought Sea, Earth, and Sky, which is kind of neat. And finally, as I said, there's about like 6 field spells, maybe even more than that in this deck. So because of the number of field spells in this deck, the idea that it'll be difficult to get this onto the battlefield is somewhat lessened. And all 3 of them have insanely good effects. Just to quickly go over them. We've got Uru, who's 3,000, 3,000. If there's no face-up field, we're going to ignore that part. Just go to the good effect. This card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, you contribute 1 other monster, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of that card until end of turn. Chaku Kalua. This card can inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its defense once per turn, but then it can't attack. And while it's in defense position, your opponent cannot conduct their battle phase, so really solid lockout guy. And then the bird, 100-100, which is really weak, but if this card is normal summoned, target 1 to 3 cards you control, but no more than your opponent has in their hand. Shuffle those into your deck, then discard the same number of cards at random from your opponent's hand. And if you do, this thing gets 1,000 attack for each card discarded by that effect. So essentially, if you're willing to give up some of the stuff on your field, you can get this thing to 3,100 pretty easily. And then it can attack your opponent directly. Next, Now we'll do that set, and then we'll get to the gates, and since I've already spoiled the demons, we'll just leave them face up, so. Dark Sanctuary is in this deck, because again, it's, you know, the gates of hell, so I figured we should include this. So Dark Sanctuary, if a spirit message card would be placed onto the field with Destiny Board, you can special summon as a normal monster. Instead, and if you do, it's unaffected by card effects except by this Destiny Board and cannot be targeted for attacks. But it does not prevent your opponent from attacking you directly. When an opponent monster declares an attack, you toss a coin. If the result is heads, negate the attack. If you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the current attack of the opponent's monster. So it's just a really solid another way for dealing with my opponents from attacking me. Dark Spirit's Mastery, discard a card, add Destiny Board or a level 8 Fiend monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And then you can banish this card from your graveyard except the turn that you activate it, and place any number of Destiny Board or Spirit Message cards from with different names from your hand or graveyard on the bottom of your deck in any order. Draw the same number of cards. Pretty solid all around. We've got all 5 pieces of the Destiny Board, and then we've got Sentence of Doom. You can target any number of your Fiend monsters that are banished or in your graveyard up to the number of Destiny Board and or Spirit Message cards you control. To your hand, you can send this card from your spell or trap zone to the graveyard. Place 1 Spirit Message card from your hand, deck, or graveyard in your spell trap zone. You can only use each effect once per turn, and only once on that turn, but still a solid card all around. So that's just a nice little alternate win con that's in this deck. Actually, you know what? We're going to do the gates last because we've kind of kept them hidden the best possible. We'll deal with the demons first. So as I was saying, I do have 2 fusion monsters. They're both Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Darkworld, which is an insanely beefed out card. You need to get a Dragon Lord of Darkworld first. Oh, this is Dragon Overlord, sorry. The regular Dragon Lord has to be on the field along with a Dark Monster, which is why some of the search cards are in this deck. And then when your opponent activates a monster card effect or a special or a normal spell or trap, you have a card in your hand. You can activate this effect. The activated effect becomes your opponent discards a card. You can use once per turn. If this card is fusion summoned in its owner's control, leaves the battlefield because of an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Grapha Dragon Lord of Darkworld that is banished or in your graveyard. Then each player with a hand discards 1 card. Pretty solid all around. I've got 3 copies of Gates of Darkworld. All Fiend monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish a Fiend monster from your graveyard, discard 1 Fiend monster, then draw a card. Pretty nice. Darkworld of Lightning, couple copies of that. Target a set spell, destroy that target, then discard a card. Each player draws a card, then discards a card. Darkworld Dealings. We want to obviously keep putting stuff in our graveyard with this deck. 1 lower 4 or level 4 or lower Fiend monster in my graveyard can be special summoned with this one. I only have 1 copy of it. Darkworld Archives, I have 2 copies of. During your main phase, you can discard a Darkworld monster, and if you do, Darkworld monsters you currently control gain attack equal to the level of the discard monster times 100. If a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded from your hand by effect of a Darkworld card or an opponent's card effect, even during your damage step, you can discard 1 card, then draw 2 cards. Pretty decent. Darkworld Ascension, I've got 2 copies of this as well. During your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 Fiend monster from your extra deck by banishing the materials mentioned on it from your field or graveyard. If fusion summoning a Darkworld monster this way, you can also discard monsters as material. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, then discard 1 Darkworld monster. So you can basically keep replaying this over and over and over again if you want to, which is pretty nice. Assuming you can get it back into your extra deck. Forces of Darkness, 2 Darkworld monsters in the graveyard, add them to your hand. Couple copies of that. Darkworld Punishment. When a monster would be normal summon or special summon, you can negate the summon. If you do, destroy that monster, then discard a Fiend monster. If Darkworld monster you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Pretty nice. Couple copies of that. We've got 2 copies of Grapha Dragon Lord of Darkworld, because I only had 2. The third copy that I have is in another deck. You can special summon this card by returning 1 Darkworld monster you control to your hand, except for the actual card itself. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by an effect, target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then, if this card was discarded to your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, look at 1 random card in your opponent's hand. If it was a monster, you can special summon it to your field. So it's pretty useful. Rainbow Over King of Darkworld. I have 2 copies of this. You can special summon this from your graveyard by returning 1 level 7 or lower Darkworld monster you control to your hand. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add 1 level 5 or higher Darkworld monster from your deck to your hand, except for this guy. And then if this card was discarded to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower dark monster from your deck or graveyard to either field, which is pretty cool. I've got a couple of Gorillas of Darkworld. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, target 1 monster in the field and destroy it. 1 copy of Snow, Unlit the Darkworld. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was from your opponent's card effect, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard. Then you can add 1 Darkworld card from your deck to your hand, and then special summon the target in defense position if there is one. Braun, we got 1 copy of him. When he inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can discard a card. Beige Vanguard. If it's discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it. 2 Tacticians, because when they're discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can destroy a spell or trap card. Bro, Huntsman of Darkworld, 1 copy of him. If he's discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, draw a card. If it was a opponent's card effect, you get to draw 2. Zernite, Gatekeeper, and Cerulli, I've got 1 copy of. If it's discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, special summon it to your opponent's field in defense position. If it's special summoned by a Darkworld card, your opponent discards a card. And then we've got 2 Gentas. You can only special summon this card once per turn. You can discard this card to the graveyard to add 1 copy of the Gates of Darkworld from your deck to your hand. If this card is banished and you control a Darkworld card, you can special summon this card. And then finally, Parl. We got 2 copies of him as well. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target 1 Darkworld monster in your graveyard, except for this guy. Special summon that card to either field. Then if it was discarded by an opponent's card, you can special summon to either field 1 of your Fiend monsters that is banished, or in your hand, or graveyard. So, pretty crazy effect, actually, for this guy. And so, we've got the big Darkworld strategy there, but we also have, to close things out, an insanely cool gate strategy as well, in that we are playing the Numeron cards in this deck. So, I've got the Numeron gates. I've got 2 copies of each of them. And then we've got the Chaos Gate as well. We've got 2 copies of it, which I believe you have to target number 1 in order to do that, whereas the others are all different numbers. So we've got number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. We've got number 100 Numeron Dragon a couple times. We've also got a number C1000 Numerous Numeronius, and a number IC1000 Numeronius Numeronia. So, quickly go over this because Kaiba wants to get going. He's getting impatient. I can feel it. You need 3 level 1 monsters to play this thing, which is why I have the 3 gates, but I also have a bunch of Darkworld cards that are level 1 for the same reason. Cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step, if a card battle an opponent's monster, you can detach 1 material from this card, double the attack of all Numeron monsters you control currently until end of turn. Cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you can detach 1 material from this, double the attack of all Numeron monsters you control. Cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled a monster, and so on and so forth. You can see the pattern here. Basically, if you detach 1 material from all 4 of these, you can multiply it by a factor of 16 their power. So each of them becomes like 16,000. in attack, which is insane. Then we got this guy over here. He requires 4 level 2 monsters, or you can do it by getting rid of the number 1 and using its materials onto this card. If this card is XYZ summoned, banish all monsters on the field. Once per turn during your next standby phase after this card was banished, you can special summon this banished card. Then if Numeron Network is in your field zone, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the combined attack of all banished XYZ monsters, which is pretty cool. The Dragon requires 2 number XYZ monsters with the same name and rank, which is why we've got 2 copies of each of the gates as well. And once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card. It gains attack equal to the combined ranks of all XYZ monsters you currently control on the field times 1,000 until the end of your opponent's turn. When this card is destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then each player sets 1 spell trap card from their graveyard to their field. When an opponent's monster declares an attack while this card is in your graveyard and you have no cards in your hand or on the field, you can special summon this guy back. So once you get him out, he's pretty reliable. Numeronius. I do have some damage, unfortunately, to this card. That was pretty sad. I managed to keep the foil that ripped off, but it still breaks my heart a little bit that this guy got damaged as he was coming out of the pack. 5 level 12 monsters, or you can detach 1... which is pretty insane. I don't think there's 5 level 12 monsters anywhere in this deck, but I'm pretty sure you can do it a different way. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, destroy 1 other monster in the field. At the end of the battle phase, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then you can special summon 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard to your field in defense position. If this card is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while it has material and is sent to your graveyard, you can special summon 1 IC 1000 card from your extra deck if you do attach this card as material. And then finally, this guy over here requires 5 level 13 monsters, but he can also, be special summoned by the effect of the C1000. It gains 100,000 attack and defense during your opponent's turn only, and applies the following effects at the start of the next turn after this card was special summoned as well. Monsters your opponents control must attack this card if able at the end of your opponent's turn. If this card did not battle, you win the duel. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can detach 1 material from this card and negate the attack, and if you do, gain life points equal to that monster's attack, which is insane. What was this thing's power? Once per turn, doesn't actually say what this thing's power is determined by. That's crazy. Well, that's just insane. How do you know what this thing's power is? It doesn't actually say on there. Huh. Okay. Numeron Network. Next up. We've got 3 copies of that, because it's very important. During your main phase, send 1 Numeron normal spell card that meets the activation conditions from your deck to your graveyard. This card's effect becomes that card's effect until the end of the turn. And then you can only use this effect once per turn. And Numeron XYZ monsters you control can activate their effects without detaching materials, which is insane. We've got the Numeron Wall. If you control no cards except for Numeron Walls, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, activate 1 Numeron Network directly from your hand or deck. Then you can only use this effect of Numeron Wall once per turn. And then when you take battle damage, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, end the battle phase after the damage step, which is kind of neat. Numeron Chaos Ritual. This is how I think you get the C1000, isn't it? Yeah. If a face-up number C1 Chaos Gate you control was destroyed by a monster effect this turn, you can target 1 of your Numeron Network and 4 of your number XYZ monsters that are banished or in your graveyard. Special summon 1 Numeronius from the extra deck. Its attack becomes 10,000, its defense becomes 10,000, and if you do, attach all 5 targets as material to that card. So that's how you get the C1000 out of this deck, essentially. And yeah, pretty crazy ability there. And that's the main reason why I have the Exiled Force in this deck, is actually to eliminate the C1. When I can get it onto the field, I can tribute the Exiled Force, kill this, and then automatically trigger this. Numeron Storm I have 1 copy of. If you control a Numeronius monster, destroy as many spells and traps as your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. And I have 2 copies of Numeron Calling. If a Numeron network is in your field zone and you control no monsters, you can special summon up to 4 Numeron Gate XYZ monsters with different names from your extra deck, but banish them during your end phase. Also, you can only normal summon or special summon once for the rest of this turn. So essentially you want to try and play that, and then either play the Calling, or you could play the... Yeah, there's lots of good stuff. But yeah, this deck is, as I say, pretty crazy. It is essentially my Gates of Hell deck, because it unleashes all kinds of nonsense from the graveyard, and it's very, very wicked in itself, and the things that come out of those gates are pretty scary looking. So, with all that said, I hope that you guys have enjoyed that deck profile, and Kaiba is ready to go home now. Yes, you are. So, thank you for watching, everyone. Much love to you all from Kaiba the Pug and myself. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And that's all we got for you. Love you. Bye.